just think about this. So, I mean, I was a pretty smart kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously resourceful, witty, funny. I was everything I was when I was eating food out of a dumpster. Think about that now. So I'm no more intelligent today than I was then, except for experiential experience.
Yes.
But I'm, as far as IQ wise, I'm not any smarter. I'm not any wittier. I'm not any more really resourceful than what I was then. The only difference between then and now is God.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Faith Ignite Show, and we're so excited you decided to join us for this episode. Trust me, it is going to be a powerful one. And before we jump into it, we just got to get some things out of the way. Hey, if this content is helping you, shaping you, encouraging you, building your faith, don't be a stranger. Don't be stingy with it. Go ahead and share it with people that you know it will help as well. Share, like, subscribe, because when you do that, you help us move on up in the rankings as far as algorithms go, and we can reach more people with this message so they can be encouraged and their faith can be built up to believe God for greater. Hey, and if you want to take your faith just another step further, go ahead and partner with us. There's a link you can click on to take us to your website where you can become a financial partner with us and be able to be the hands and feet, an extension of this ministry to be able to take this message of faith around the world to the people that need them. And so thank you so much in advance for your support, and we love you guys. And so we're going to jump into today's episode. We have a really, really important guest. I met this gentleman about 6 or 7 months ago. We go to the same church, and we just happened to hit it off, and we had a conversation. And he kind of shared a little bit about what his story was like, and trust me, it blew me away. And I know it's going to have the same effect on you guys. And so lean in, listen, because God has done some tremendous and miraculous things in this man's life. And so without further ado, please help me welcome Mr. Brad.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Man,
I'm so thankful for you to have me here.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for being on this podcast, because I know before we even get started, this is going to be something that changes lives. Amen. And I heard a little snippet of it, but I know people deserve to hear what God has done in your life, man.
Amen.
And so, I mean, just real quick, who do I have the pleasure of sitting down with?
So my name's Brad Woessner. I am the co-owner with the consulting company Be Real.
Okay.
It's a company we'll talk a little bit later about how we got to that point. But I'll give you a little bit of, and the only reason I share this is in my life, I feel like I don't feel like things in my life happen. Some people say, well, this happened in your life to strengthen you.
Yeah.
Some things happen to strengthen me, but really I feel like things happened in my life. I felt later on in life that things happened in my life so that I would be able to help other people.
Yeah.
So I had hardships. I had a lot of things to celebrate, so I was able to celebrate with others. I had other things that were travesties in my life, and because of those travesties, God bringing me through those travesties, I did become a better, stronger person, but at the same time, a stronger person in the way that when some people came to talk to me about their situations, it kind of builds a bridge into where they're at.
Yeah.
And I'll give you like the shorter version of it. I was grew up out in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I had, I had 3 jobs. I worked for Safeway. I mowed yards. I stacked apples for Safeway. I waited tables.
Man, you did everything.
Yeah. I mean, I was hustling, man. I was all the way through high school. I was hustling, and by the time I was 20, I bought my own house, which in those days was a lot, to own your own house at 20 years old. And then I was, kept doing all these things, and then I got an outside sales job, which was amazing. I love sales. My whole life people said, you need to go into sales. Sales. So I'm like, okay, great. So I go into sales, and I'm doing well at sales. I'm selling, but at the same time, I start hanging out with, they say, watch who your playmates are and what playground you go to. And so I started at Safeway. I had this really structured job where you clocked in, clocked out. I worked many hours, so it kind of kept me out of trouble. Now I got this outside sales job where I'm making 2 or 3 times more than what I was. No structure, no direct supervisor in Oklahoma, in Tulsa. And so I just had this money came in. I have the wrong playmates, the wrong playground. And my life started going the wrong direction. And the company that I was working for really liked me. And they were like, hey, we see you're having problems. I was like, I'm not having problems. they're like, no, you're having problems. Like, okay, all right, I'm going to the nightclubs, I'm partying. Right away, they stopped the conversation. Next day, an HR person called me and said, here's the deal, Brad. You can just go to rehab for 30 days and you keep your job. And so because of my vanity, the only reason I didn't go and get help was because I didn't want to tell people I had a drinking problem.
Wow.
And so because of that, I didn't want to tell my mom, didn't want to tell my brothers. But what I found out later, I didn't want to tell them, but it took me 8 years to find it out. I didn't want to tell them something they already knew.
Wow.
They already
okay.
knew.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're around me any period of time at that point in my life, you obviously know I got problems.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, so what happened was on that time is I just shut down, kept going with the wrong people in the wrong places, and my life started to spiral until like 2 years later, the sheriff put me out on the street. Now when I say I'm homeless, I'm literally, some people help me and let me sleep on their sofas and stuff like that for a little bit at certain times. But I'm literally like, there's a bridge that crosses over 15th Street down there close to Lewis, and we would crawl up there in the middle of that just because we felt like we were safe up there, on and off the streets for almost a year. I'm talking about, in and out of literally having to eat out of dumpsters, doing things we wish we hadn't done, trying to live day to day. And I'm telling you, like we were talking about earlier, I really don't regret or like feel sorry for myself at all about that, because there was a lot of things. The only thing I really feel bad about is I wasted a lot of time. It took a lot of energy to rebuild my life. But, the only thing I really, really regret was there was a period there my mom didn't know where I was. But for the most part, man, there's a lot of lessons to be learned out of being homeless.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like gratitude and empathy, and no matter what happens in my life now, I kind of reference back to, even if it's a difficult situation or I got to go do something difficult, I'm like, well, it's not as difficult as this was.
Yes, exactly.
And so one night I went to bed. The only thing I really that's almost like post-traumatic stress disorder was the literal sense of hopelessness. And that's what drives me today. Because when you're, and some people might understand what I'm saying, but when you're in an absolute point where there's no hope. Now, I had God in my life. Luckily, thank God, my mother at the time, my whole life had me in church, at least exposed me to Jesus Christ and God. So I had that. When I owned my own house, I would listen to Christian music when I went to sleep at night. So I at least had that in me that through this time, but I was not present because I was not in that place. And so one night I went to bed, and this old song of Russ Taft, I woke up in the morning and it was playing in my head, and I'm like, this was the first time I'd experienced hope in almost a year.
Wow.
And I was like, guys, I'm not going to be here very long. I don't know what just happened, but I'm not going to be here very long. Sure enough, my brother shows up and picks me up, says, a friend of yours in Oklahoma City, Greg Porter, sent you some money, put me on a bus, sent me to Oklahoma City. And my buddy in Oklahoma City, he went and bought me one pair of pants, one shirt, one tie, and that's how I started with this furniture store in Oklahoma City. I was with him for almost 34 years, went from no car, I had to I had people pick me up and all that. One shirt that I washed every night and dried it with iron in the morning.
Wow.
I was a national sales manager, general manager of sales, 600 people.
Wow.
And the thing that really is, I look back now where I'm at, I really, just think about this. So, I was a pretty smart kid. Obviously resourceful, witty, funny. I was everything I was when I was eating food out of a dumpster. Think about that now. So I'm no more intelligent today than I was then, except for, experiential experience.
Yes.
But as far as IQ wise, I'm not any smarter. I'm not any wittier. I'm not any more really resourceful than what I was then. The only difference between then and now is God.
Wow.
And so as the journey came out of this deal, then I get baptized in Oklahoma City. Now I'm really starting to move into what God wanted me to do.
Yeah.
But I kept relapsing. And so with the alcohol, and that's kind of a long story. I'll come back and tell you about it. But the biggest thing, I would be able to quit drinking for a while. And God helped me. I mean, like one night I went to sleep on Halloween night of all things. And I said, God, I can't do this anymore. This is yours. And I never had a desire to drink for 8 years. And then here comes Satan.
Yeah.
Just drink one, bro. Just have one.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, it's off to the races. And but then I went to Celebrate Recovery in Oklahoma several years back, and I learned the why. And the biggest thing, the why, because I kept getting, sober, and I wouldn't, sober, and I wouldn't. So I found the why. One, don't go it alone.
Yeah.
Take Jesus with you.
Yeah.
Put a bunch of good people around you. And then the big thing that was really an aha moment is in the process of this Celebrate Recovery, you go through and you make a list of everybody that you need to forgive, and then others that you need to forgive, and other people that need to forgive you. And so I was sitting there and talking to him, going through this list of people I need to forgive, people need to forgive me. And my guy goes, well, where's your name on the list? I go, I didn't think about that. Now you're going to forgive yourself. Yeah. And then he said, then the big one was, he said, you said, you've forgiven your father. He passed away. I won't go into it. But he says, but let me ask you a question. Was your dad a better dad than his dad? And I was like, yeah, man, his dad was terrible. My dad was in and out of orphanages. I mean, this was back in the 40s and 50s and that. Yeah, my dad was out. He goes, so your dad was actually a better dad than his own dad. And I go, yeah. He goes, maybe we should give him some grace. Bro, I'm telling you, I left my guy's house and I walked outside, and I promise you, I remember stopping for a second. I go, oh man, the sky's bluer, the grass is greener, and it was all because of forgiveness. Wow. And then also the difference between 40-some years ago when I got fired and my life spiraled was this time I had an amazing wife and children, and I had a support group around me. And men that came around me and guys that came around me, and that changed. Then I changed my playmates, changed my playground, and so anyway, that's kind of that part of the deal. Sorry, you asked me a question.
You're good. You're good. Okay, so there was a lot to unpack there. There was a lot to go through, but I guess I want to start at the beginning. Thank you so much for your support in Faith Ignite. And I just want to challenge and encourage you just to take your support just a little bit further. In order for us to reach the mission and vision that God has called us to as a ministry, we realize we need help. We realize we need support. And this is why we realize we need you. In order for us to take these messages of faith around the world, it's going to require partnership from people all over. And so we're going to ask, if you feel led to go and partner with us, go ahead and follow the link that's linked down below, and it'll take you to our website, and you can be able to partner with us there. But just know that when you partner with us, you are helping us to take these stories of faith around the world. People, by listening to these stories, people will know that God is real. People will know that God is true. People will know that God is alive and well, and He's doing things in the life of His children. And those stories deserve to be heard. And so thank you so much in advance for helping us to take these stories of faith around the world to the people that need them. We love you guys. So you talked about this, and if anyone was around you for a period of time, they would have known you had a problem, but you never admitted it. So what, and I guess it speaks directly to it, but how was it that pride, that self-entitlement, that like, no, I got this, no one else needs to know. How is that, like, what was your thought process? What were you thinking in the midst of all that? Like, no one needs to know.
Really, and if you think about it, that's really the shackles of Satan. And I'm not over amplifying that. I'm just saying, if he could get in your head and tell you, look, if you go, because he knew if I went and told people, then I would get help. So there's a very positive thing that's called solitude, where you choose to be. And then there's a whole very dangerous place to be, which is isolation. So he knew if he could, that wedge that said, I got to go disappear for 30 days, somebody's going to try to figure out where I am. I got to tell people where I'm at. And so he started building this up in my head that this was going to be a terrible thing, and all my friends wouldn't be my friends, and my mom would be disappointed in me, and all this other stuff, which was a straight lie. So you kind of get to a point in your life and you go, I literally have had to do this several times, where thoughts get into my head and I have to think, and I go, okay, you're not going to make it. You're not worth a crap. The money's going to run out, whatever it is. I have to literally kind of stop and think, is that God? And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
So why would you listen to that?
Yes.
And anything that says, I sent you to earth with everything you need to achieve what you were sent here to achieve. You're the greatest. You're loved. All those things. Those are all things straight from God. So
yes.
I had to catch later on in life who I was listening to.
Yeah.
And it's not really funny, but the big one was I didn't want to call my mom, which,
yeah.
like I said, if you're around anybody that has a drinking problem, it doesn't take very long to figure out they have a drinking problem. So this is like 8 years later, after homelessness, after I'm with the furniture company, I have a wife, I have a child, so I'm going to my mom's house to tell my mom, like, okay, you guys stay in the car. I'm going to go and tell Grandma that, Brad's a drunk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was sweating because I'm
yeah.
to come clean with my mom, right?
Yeah.
And so I go in the house, you got to remember, this is a mom that's been through all kinds of, police coming to her work because of Brad. And,
wow.
I'm not bragging about it, but, she doesn't know where I'm at for a year.
Yeah.
So it's not like you walk in to say something to your mom. It's like I walk in to say something to my mom. I go, Mom, I got something to tell you. She immediately pops down. So like,
oh, what? Yeah.
Right? And so I said, I left the kids in the car. I got ready. Something serious I got to tell you. And I go, hey, here's the deal. I was a drunk. She goes, Brad, everybody knows that. And I was like, oh, snap.
Yeah.
I went 8 years of struggle.
Wow.
Because I listened to the wrong voice. All I had to do was when that company said, you need help, which they truly were trying to help me.
Yeah.
Was to pick the phone up and call a couple people and tell people I'm in trouble.
Wow.
Which they already knew.
Yeah.
They would have celebrated me. I would have gone there. But anyway, that's not where the story went.
Man.
And so I went through those things. Like I said, they strengthened me. I'm not proud of them. I'm not proud of a lot of things. But at the same time, I would not be who I am today without the homelessness. I would not be who I am. So all of that is why I'm so thankful you invited me here, because through this, I'm at, God keeps driving in me. Be thankful.
Yes.
Even though you're not where you necessarily want to be right now, or you don't understand everything, be thankful.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to find a way to go help more people.
Yeah.
It's all because. And then he said, last thing he said was glorify my name. And I'm like, well, what about the money? He goes, okay, let's go back over this, Brad.
Yeah.
I need you to be grateful. I need you to help people.
Yeah.
And I need you to glorify my name. So
just those 3 instructions. Wow. It's interesting, like you said, for 8 years, you went through something that you didn't have to, but because you listened to that wrong voice. There was that pride, like, no, I can't tell people. You went through something unnecessarily because of pride. And my mentor always says, he says, you always be grateful for where you're at on the way to where you're going. He said, that's how you do it. That's how where you're at, you're grateful, but there's more to it, but you're grateful on the way to where you're going. And that's the attitude that we have to have when it comes to gratitude. Like, Father, I thank you that we're here. I thank you that we have this podcast. I thank you that it's 5 seasons that we've already done on the way to where we're going, And so going back to your story. So you said something when you're homeless. You had, your IQ wasn't any different.
Correct.
You're intelligent. None of that was different when you were homeless. So you said the only difference between that and that time and now was because now you had God. Expand a little bit on that.
Literally, that God, and not all the time, I'm not saying, but God was driving my life, and I had God. Like I said, when I was baptized, I woke up from the baptismal in a church in Oklahoma City, and I'm literally speaking in tongues. That the Holy Spirit hit me so hard, it was almost like, man, I'll cry. It was almost like a wedding or a ceremony or something, that I came out and I felt this joy, and it was like he had been waiting all this time for me. I mean, I was probably 35, 32 years old, and he was waiting for this whole time for me. Now, I wasn't miraculously healed. I had another deal happen at my house. I'll tell you later sometime. I had this amazing occurrence happen at my house, and I was like, I felt the presence of God, and I said, God, is that you? And he's like, yeah. And so I just felt this joy, and I'm like, man, where you been? Like, I wasn't being, I was like, I mean, I've been kind of struggling here for a while. I was going through a divorce. He goes, I'd have been here sooner had you gotten out of my way.
Wow.
I was like, oh, snap.
Say that again. He would have.
He said I would have showed up sooner had you gotten out of my way.
Wow.
Another thing he told me, which I'll tell you about some other time, is at the time this happened, my house was completely quiet. I'll just go ahead and tell you. I came in my house. I hated being alone. I was going through a divorce. My 3 older kids were with their mom. The wife at the time was gone, so I always left the house, and I always left the TV going because I didn't want to come in the house to no kids, no wife, no TV.
Okay.
So for some reason, somehow the TV got turned off. I came in the house, and it was completely quiet. And I literally thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. And so I go and I lay on the sofa, and because I'm at my wit's end, I'm like, God, look, I don't normally do this, man, but I'm not going anywhere until something happens. And out of nowhere, man, my house smelled like perfume. I swear to gosh.
Wow.
And I just kept laying there, and I was like, God, is that you? And he said, oh, yeah, it's me. And he said, I'm in the only place you wouldn't go. I'm in the quiet. Because Satan wanted to keep all the noise going and the chaos going.
Wow.
And so when I finally got to a point that there was no noise, there was no chaos, he comes rolling in. He says, when you get up, people aren't even going to recognize you for who you were. He goes, you just need to keep praying that when you meet people now, pray that they see me and pray that they hear me. Wow. And I was like, but then I asked him when I was getting ready, because I was going to go meet my kids that night. That was in my closet. I was like, dang, man, what took you so long? You know, talking to God like that. He goes, he had to smart back off. He goes, yeah, I'd been here sooner if you got out of my way. It's like, okay, all right, everybody, let's just calm down.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Wow. He would have got here sooner if you gotten out of his way.
Yeah. And that's been the case. I mean, the biggest obstacle in my life normally has been myself.
Yeah. Man, it's so... I remember the verse where it says, there's many of the plans in a man's heart, but it's the Lord's will that will prevail. Like, we all have these things that we want to do. We all have these things that we have to make sure that we focus on. But God always had a different plan. And when we submit ourselves to him, then we truly get to experience what real freedom and real life is. Like you said, if you got out of the way sooner, he would have been able to do a lot more things in your life. Wow. And so at this particular point in time, you're working at the furniture store. And so talk to me about that, because obviously you went from being homeless to then becoming the general manager, I think it was.
General manager, sales, regional manager. So I started for 5 years. I was on the floor, and I kept getting better at learning skills, even though I was an outside sales before my life fell apart. But I really didn't know how to sell, and so the situation I was in was a very great petri dish for learning how to greet qualified close. So I became very good. And I'm talking about hand-to-hand combat sales.
Yeah.
But also, when I really got to the point where God started becoming more of my life, I got into a better mind space, which I became better at sales. Another there again with me. I would be in a great space of I'm not worrying about certain things. When I went to the door, I wanted to greet somebody. I wanted them just for hospitality. You know, it's like if you came in to purchase a piece of furniture, okay, I knew I was already going to help you, but you had 5 or 6 friends that probably could afford a piece of furniture too. So I was going to be so kind to you, and I was going to fill you so with hospitality that you were going to refer other people to me. And once that clicked for me, that's when I started blowing up. And then I quit drinking for that time I was telling you about on Halloween. Life got better. I became a sales manager for 5 years. And then after I was a sales manager for 5 years, the company started noticing I was doing really well. I was winning a couple times. Last couple of years, I was a sales manager. And so they had a store in Tulsa, and they're like, okay, here's the deal. We want to send you back to Tulsa. I'm like, snap, that's great. Yeah. That's where my mom was, all my brothers were, so I got to come home. The cool thing about that is I specifically remember coming home on the Turner Turnpike, and it was another one of those kind of God moments, and I was like, bro, you left here in a bus. You're rolling back in a Benz. Wow. Straight from God. And so I came here, and then I started running one store, and then I started running multiple stores, and I kept doing my thing and helping many people. Yeah. So, but I'm gonna go back one little deal. So when I lived in Oklahoma City and I was a sales manager, and I'm so glad you invited me here.
Oh, of course.
I was a sales manager in Oklahoma City. And I went to this, it was a Vineyards church on a Sunday night.
Okay.
And it was a husband and wife team, and they were pastors. They were a pastoral team. They were a husband and wife team. Holy Spirit was really moving at this church. That's why I went there on a Sunday night, because people were like, hey, man, you need to go. It's really a unique experience. So I went there with some friends, and this husband and wife team were on the stage, and all of a sudden this wife kind of veers over to me, and she points right at me. I mean, there's 1,000 people there.
Wow.
She goes, you will help thousands and thousands of people. And I went, here's what I thought, though. I go, man, you better say something about money, because I'm broke. Like, I remember leaving the church and hitting my garage door opener. I had a house and all that, but I remember hitting my garage door opener, and if the garage door didn't open, my electricity had been turned off.
Wow.
But what I did realize is that she was right, that the more people I help and the more people I intentionally try to improve their lives, the financial gains of it are spiritually and philosophically impossible not to make more money.
Wow.
You help more people, you're going to make more money. God promises you that, right?
Yeah.
So I but she said that, but it took me almost 20 years, because when I was a salesperson, I made X amount of dollars. When I was a sales manager, I made X amount of dollars. And after she told me that, my wife at the time and we didn't even keep a balance in our checkbook, because all I focused on was the people on my team, how much money they made. And I knew if they made more money, I was making more money. So now I'm listening to what God's telling me to do.
Yeah.
So then I get to this other point where now I've got, several stores underneath me, but it's still back to that same principle. The more people I help, the more I'm a beacon for people, the more I'm a light for people, the more I'm an encouragement for people. The money is all up.
It's gonna come, yeah.
It's gonna come. So
wow.
But the deal didn't last with that business I was in. They went a different direction, so I was kind of at loss of words, and my wife was up in the kitchen telling her friend of mine, Brad said, the last 10 years, when he retires or whatever, he wants to go be a consultant or go, do social media or do keynote speaking and all stuff. Maybe it's just a nudge,
Yeah.
But what I did realize then is I'm telling you this quick part of this deal, you can go back to it if you want.
Yeah.
Is I never really felt like even though there was the company that I was working for had 600 salespeople, 65 sales managers, 20 store managers, I never really felt like I fulfilled that lady's prophecy. So what I'm doing now, I feel like with God's help, will give me the ability to reach more people and help more people.
Wow.
This kind of medium like you're doing, which is so impressive, you have an opportunity to help millions and millions of people, not just thousands of people,
Wow.
So,
man. So
to feel sorry for him, man. He called me and he didn't know none of this, and now he's like, okay.
No, it's great because, man, you're getting to see like firsthand what God has done in someone's life when they allowed him to come in, he transformed everything about it. And that's what you were being able to see firsthand. And that blesses me to hear all of the stories, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, but being able to see how God used all of that and restored you to where you're at. So my one of my last questions is this. So in the midst of all of this, like in the midst of this transition now, like you said, there's those voices and stuff that try to tell you like the money's going to run out or this and that. One of two questions. How is it that you walk through that? And then also like, how does your family support? How does your family come and help you with all this? Because obviously you can't walk alone. You need a community. So how does your family helps with all of this?
It's crazy how, this was a shock because I worked for this company for 34 years. And so for the first week or so, it was really, I tried to be strong because we went to California with my wife and my 13-year-old. And so I tried to be strong and, be there, but, at night when they would go to sleep, here comes Satan, because he's in the quiet too, and he's like, and I've already told him where all my buttons are. I told him, well, I'm worried about my daughter finishing school and having, I don't have a job now. How am I going to get her a car? How am I get her, I've already showed him all those buttons.
Yeah.
So he comes to me. So I literally, for the first week or so, I'd have to sit on the side of the bed because my family and all that didn't freak out. So I didn't want to be the freak out. They're faithful. Why would I?
Yeah.
So, So I would, but I was going through a tough time, and we went to this amusement park in California, and I'm going to get back to your.
Yeah.
I went to this amusement park in California, and it's like when you're in the absolute worst time, it's crazy how I've never heard an audible word from God, but it's crazy how when you're in the kind of the absolute worst time or toughest time. So we're at this amusement park in California, and it starts to get real busy. We're talking California, Universal Studios, and we come into this little bottleneck deal. So I grab a little 13-year-old and I pull her towards me and my wife too, and kind of make sure we're all okay.
Yeah.
And that moment, I just felt this. This is like a week after the company went a different direction. We're in a tense place at an amusement park. All of a sudden, I felt God go. When I pulled them in, He goes, Brad, that's what I'm doing to you right now. I'm not separating from you. How you just pulled your family in, because that's where we're at, bro.
Wow.
And then I was better.
Yeah.
But the thing about it, like you said, is the undaunting belief of the people around me now, my wife and people like you, and everybody I tell this story to has come and rallied and been there. But I will kind of tell you this. My wife, amazingly smart lady. So I kind of didn't realize, when I'm on the phone coaching people, or I'm on the phone helping people, or I'm in a situation, she's been to meetings with me, sales meetings with me, all this stuff. So when I would get into those places where I'm listening to the wrong voices, I'm like, what are we going to do about the money? What are we going to do about the money? She's like this. She goes, hey, didn't you tell people that God has sent you to earth with every tool you need to achieve what you were sent here to?
Oh, she brings it back
I'm like, man, don't give me my own sermon, man. That's not for me. That was for them other folks.
Yeah.
And so she goes, anytime I bring those things up, she goes, well, is that really anything under your control? She's like, we can't control this. All we can go control is what He told us to control, which was be thankful, help people, and glorify His name. So that has been a huge help. And I've jokingly been saying this to people. There were certain times, we go to the same church together. There were certain times before this transition happened with the company I was working for. I would go into church.
Yeah.
And I'd struggle to kind of pay attention or whatever,
Yeah.
But man, when you hit a storm, you hear everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You were like, I'm hearing words. I'll be on the phone with somebody. I have this my notepad in my phone, and it'll be a little word that somebody says that pops off, and I'll get in there and do it. And now, like I said, when I'm in church, I'm jokingly tell people, oh, when you're in the storm, you'll listen to God.
Oh, yes.
You will listen.
Yes.
And if you're smart, you will listen, because He's really trying to speak to you as much then, if not more. And I still have bad days. I still have, I'm human. But when I'm telling you, every time I have a bad day like that, He'll have somebody call me.
Yeah.
Or it's like literally like I'm in this storm, and literally like He pushes His face through the clouds. I was like, no, man, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I get a call from somebody who goes, hey, I got a buddy who wants to go to lunch with you tomorrow. And I'm like, see, man, the worry is not him. The quickest thing off of any tough highway is redemption and forgiveness and belief. And so I just got to remember, I got to keep, if I'm on that highway of worry, doubt, anxiety, I got to get off that highway, and I got to go to the peace and the forgiveness and the belief. And so I just got to keep exiting the highway, man.
Man, that's good. That's good. So one of the last things I always like to ask people, if you can go back in time to 30 years ago or 40 years ago, what would be the one piece of advice that you would tell yourself then, and how would you think it would make a difference?
I've actually thought about this before, what I would have said, but probably the first thing was the obvious thing we've been talking about a lot that caused a lot of hardship for me, was stay away from the alcohol.
Yeah.
Because, 1 out of 10 people, 2 out of 10 people on earth, when a stimulant hits your brain like that, they can't control it. So it's like 1 out of 10 people have poison ivy. Get poison ivy. So if they are touched by poison ivy. So if you know you're going to get poison ivy, then just don't touch it.
Yeah.
So that would be the one thing to do. And then the other thing would be that God is the answer. And I know, like, let's say I'm 17 years old, 18-year-old, you just think you have the world by the tail.
Yeah.
But if I could go back and talk to that person and go, let me tell you something. At some point in time, you won't have the world by the tail.
Yeah.
At some point in time, you're going to be alone. At some point in life, people are going to leave your life. At some point in time, you're going to get hurt. But God never leaves your life.
Yeah.
So if you want the constant, if you want this, then pull as close as you can to him, because he's always going to be there with you. That's one thing. And then the other thing that I probably would and this came about, I thought about it, is to go back to that person and explain to them, that, and I had to learn this through age and that, and I've listened to speeches, and like when you introduced me, and actually, when I go to funerals or whatever, I listen to them, and like I went to my little brother's funeral, and I listened to those people. It really hit me at that, where I listened to people go up and talk about his life and what he had done, and celebrating his life and that, even though he passed away at a young age. And I thought, oh snap! I know one thing. They didn't talk about his house. They didn't talk about his savings. They didn't flash a car up on the screen. Everybody that went up on stage, all they went up on stage to say is the ways that he had helped people. Yeah. The kindness that he had shared for other people. Yeah. And the helping and the kindness and the caring and how he loved them. Yes. And so to answer your question, if I could go back, that's what I would say. I'd say stay away from the alcohol. Yeah, yeah. Get as close to God as you possibly can. Because I'm telling you, everybody has it in their lives. You're going to hit a bad spot. You're going to hit a rough spot. And then in the end, if we know, hey, dude, I'm 62, you're 16. I'm telling you that when you get to the end of your life, all that's going to matter is how you helped other people, kindness, how you loved people and encouraged people. That's all it's going to matter. So why don't you start doing it now when you're 16 years old? That's what I would tell them after the years of learning. Wow. Brad, ladies and gentlemen, man, thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing your story, man. I really appreciate it. I was blessed. I know people on the other end will be blessed. I heard people talking like before we recorded, it was like, man, I can't wait for that episode to come out. So people like are waiting for this, man, because your story has tremendous miracles in it, and it deserves to be heard by the world. And so thank you so much for gracing us with your presence to be able to come on the podcast, man. We really appreciate it. No, thank you. Absolutely. Thanks for letting me share. Of course, man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to wrap it up for this episode. But before we go, if this podcast is helping you, shaping you, and encouraging you in any way, don't be stingy with it. Share, send it to people that you know so they can also receive the same thing that you are, that their faith can be built, that their faith can be encouraged, and they can believe God for even greater. And if you want to take it a step further, go ahead and become a partner with us. You can click the link below, follow it to our website, and become a financial partner, become a hand or the hands and the feet and the extension of this ministry so we can take this message around the world to the people that need them. When you when you share, when you subscribe, hey, you're helping us take this Faith Ignite up and up the ranks, so because of the algorithm we can get it to more people. And if we want to know what's going on in your life. If you want to drop a comment below, do so, because we love to know, hey, what is God doing in your life? If you have a story you think the world needs to hear, go and drop it below. We'll try and get to it, because we want these stories of faith to be heard by people all around the world that need them. And so thank you so much. My name is Devon, and this has been Faith Ignite. We'll see you guys next time.